Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Connect to Nature Anywhere, Inclusive Language for Lasting Impact. My name is Sarah Coles, and I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Children in Nature Network, and we're excited to have you with us today. We are recording our session today, so thank you for joining us, and please mute yourselves and turn off your camera for the presentation so we can save bandwidth for all of our attendees and for a clean recording. I will be monitoring the chat so you can share your questions there and I'll share them with our presenters. There will be a couple of chances that our presenter will ask you to unmute, and that is totally fine at those instances. Please remember to keep your comments in the chat kind. Ashley is running tech for us today. Thank you so much, Ashley. As I said, we're recording today's session and I'll share it in a follow-up email in a few days, in addition to the slides from the presentation. Ashley is also taking attendance for us, so if you could make sure that your name in Zoom matches the name you registered with. If it doesn't, you can hover over the little three dots next to your name and change it, or you can private message Ashley and let her know. And I'm going to go ahead and do our land acknowledgement. Texas Children in Nature Network is headquartered in Austin, and as such, I'm on the ancestral and unceded land of the Tonkawa, Comanche, and Sauna people. Our ongoing colonial presence on indigenous lands compels us to take action now to counteract the effects of colonization, and the work we do through the Texas Children in Nature Network is one small step towards that effort. And I'm going to put a few links in the chat in just a minute about land acknowledgements and about those people groups. But now I'd like to go ahead and welcome today's speaker. Aasya Peera is with Maritimus magazine. Thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, for being here and sharing your time with me. I hope you're able to benefit from what we discussed today. I haven't done anything like this before, so we're all gonna, work together to see what we can do to improve our programs for all of our audiences. So a couple of housekeeping notes before we jump in. I was saying earlier, you are welcome to share questions in the chat as we go throughout the presentation. And Sarah will let me know. I don't believe I'll be able to see them with the way that I'm presenting, but she will let me know. So I will get to them when I can. I will also be trying my best, if I remember, to pause before each slide so you are able to read what's on the screen without my voice conflicting with it. So they're not text-heavy slides, but I just want to give you that moment. Okay, so let's jump in. Okay, so again, as Sarah said, my name is Aasya, and I write and produce a children's magazine called Maritimus. It explores nature and wildlife topics in a way that helps readers appreciate the role of the natural world in their life. So before Maritimus, I taught as an informal educator at nature centers and zoos in the DFW area. And when I was moving to Austin a few years ago, I decided to pursue writing as a mode for teaching children instead, since it's something that I have always had a skill for and an interest in. But in my pursuit of freelance writing for existing kids' nature and wildlife or nature and science magazines, I noticed that there was a gap in how they framed the content for kids. So a majority of it focused on exotic animals and phenomenons in remote places. And I just was kind of struck by how, as a child grows older and inevitably, usually their interests will shift, they might start to feel like nature isn't really relevant to their life because they were always taught about it, again, in a way that was a little bit far removed from something that they engage with daily. And from my own personal experiences, I also noticed this in when I was teaching as an informal educator, because my own community, from my personal friends to the community I'm involved in, isn't very outdoorsy in that sense. And so I had quickly noticed the disconnect between the people involved in the conservation field where I worked and in the people I was surrounded by in my personal life. And the first group of people were obviously naturally enthusiastic about nature, as we all are. And while the second group was kind of just occasionally engaging with the outdoors. And I got the impression from different experiences that the second group kind of left caring for and learning about nature to the first group of, outdoorsy people because they didn't feel like their interests aligned and felt like it was reserved for only those who did have interests that, again, put them outdoors more. So it became my goal to get everyone enthusiastic about the natural world, regardless of where they like to spend their time or what their interests were. So the frameworks I will be sharing today are ones that I use for the magazine through mainly written and visual form. But then we will also have a chance to discuss how you may be able to implement those in other formats like in-person programming. And I will also share more about the magazine at the end, for anybody interested as a resource. Okay. So before we fully jump in, again, I'd like to hear from you. If you have a professional personal role that is the reason you signed up for this webinar that you would like to share in the chat. And if you have an audience, what is their demographic or age range? Like, are they, traditional formal students in a school, or are they in your public programming? And then what is the first word that comes to mind when you hear the word nature?
Would you like us to just start speaking?
Yeah, you are welcome to
Yeah.
to speak,
Okay.
or you're able to put it in the chat as well.
Oh, chat. Okay. I'll put it in the
Whichever
chat.
you're more
Thanks.
comfortable with, I don't mind.
Well, as long as I'm here,
Yeah.
my name is Liz Geisler. I'm a special ed instructional specialist for secondary campuses at East Central ISD down here in San Antonio.
Okay.
I am personally a member of Texas Children in Nature, and it is I believe that this webinar could enhance my work, but primarily I am here just for myself on work hours. Okay.
That's wonderful. I'm
Okay.
glad to have you here. Okay, first word you think is green. I like that.
Rachel Weaver put in the chat, education and volunteer coordinator of Native Plants Association, works with K-12, college and adult learning, also educator workshops. First word that comes to mind is outside.
Sarah, I can actually also see the
Oh,
chat. I
okay.
opened it and we're good because you can still see my
Perfect.
screen, correct?
Yes.
Great. Then
Yeah.
I'm seeing everything I need to. Thank you. But you can let me know if someone asks a question and I don't notice
Okay.
it.
I will.
Trees, peace. I like it. Currently engaging them with the nature and wildlife in their own backyards. Oh, I like belonging. Sky, joy and fun is awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing. So, for me, this is a kind of warm up that I use for programs that I'll do with kids in person. Because the catch here, obviously, is that there's no wrong answer or incorrect correlation between nature and any word that comes to mind, because nature is truly a part of everything, right? I like to use the phrase, nature is our fuel. It is what powers our life on Earth in every way. So, anything that you're interacting with, that you're eating, that everything that surrounds us comes from nature in one way or another. So if we think of nature as more encompassing than just what is found outdoors, we can be more mindful and appreciative of it at all times. That's essentially what we're trying to accomplish with our audiences. So to set that point up a little bit further, I actually have a short interview clip that I came across a few months ago or a few weeks ago between Hassan Minhaj, a journalist, and Alex Honnold, the professional um, rock climbing athlete. And they had a short discussion. I'm going to share about a 40-second clip of it to kind of further set up my point here. Okay, let's see.
Nobody's really done this. Because you love nature so much, how do you feel about climate change? Because for me and a lot of people, it's tough to keep on top of. We understand it intellectually, but we don't feel it in our day-to-day life as much.
Was everybody able to hear that? We good? Can I get Sarah? Was that?
Yes.
Audible? Okay, awesome. Okay, yeah. So he's essentially saying, what is um how does he kind of notice climate change and what he does? And so Alex Honnold kind of goes into how all the remote places that he goes to, year after year, he does see the impact of climate change there. And so the follow-up question here is,
But how do you get people to care about a place they'll never go?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the question. I think that's why the U.S. in particular has been so slow to respond to any kind of climate action, like to actually do any kind of environmental things, because I think so many people live in cities and it's just like hard to break through like what they care about. I mean, one way is helping people understand the direct connection between what happens in these remote places and, the air that they breathe and sort of like ocean health and how that relates to the oxygen that we're breathing every day. And, basically it's like the global climate, how that relates to, we're all part of the same ecosystem. We're all in the same boat together here, like planet Earth is just like one living system.
Right.
It's like helping people understand that, I hope would get them to care more about it.
okay, so we're going to do a little bit more than hope. But essentially what Alex Honnold is saying, right, is that drawing connections between remote natural places slash nature in general and our everyday life is really kind of at the heart of being able to get everyone involved in caring for nature and getting outdoors because it will feel more relevant to their life. So now, the other part of this, right, is why do we have people who may be disconnected from nature? And again, as they mentioned in the interview, a big part of that is where someone lives. But there's also a lot of valid reasons that someone might still not be getting outside. Differing lifestyles is obviously a big one of those. If someone just has interests, like we said, that just don't put them outside as much, or cultural practices and cultural impressions of being outdoors, responsibilities that do not allow them a lot of time for leisure. And again, especially competing interests, like we said, for kids as they're growing older, they might start to get involved with more things. Like they had enjoyed a lot of outdoor play when they were younger, but as they get older, different things are becoming more present in their life, and so it takes them away from nature in that way. Um, Access obviously is a big one as well. Children can have limited access because of safety issues or where they live, or again, because the family culture is just not conducive. It's not something where their parents or families are taking them. Access can also mean, people with disabilities that prevent them from spending time outdoors. So none of this, basically, this is a judgment-free zone, right? We're not saying like, oh no, but it's amazing, you should be outdoors. We're recognizing that people are just, it's just a reality that everybody's going to have a different lifestyle that puts them at varying degrees of being outdoors and having a connection with nature. But again, what we're trying to accomplish here, our goal is to help everyone feel connected to nature regardless of their lifestyle. Because when we feel connected, we feel included. And when we feel included, we take ownership and responsibility. So feeling included leads audiences to take ownership of a space. If they feel ownership over a space, they will feel more comfortable spending more time there and will care to look after it. So again, if we can get our audiences to feel more connected to nature itself, we can lead them to spend more time outside and take action to protect it as well. Now I want to ask you, after kind of setting that up, like what our problem is. I want to know from you if you've experienced any of this in your workplace, like kind of that disconnect from your audience, or maybe not. So the question is, how do you feel your audience reacts to caring or learning more about nature? So one, we have the very super enthusiastic people who show up, which is wonderful, or B, someone who is occasionally willing. And by that, I mean someone who they're showing up on occasion, right? There's an event, there's a program that's going on, and they're there and they're happy to participate, but it's just a once in a while thing for them that they kind of is separate a little bit from their daily life. And C is appreciative but uninvolved. So maybe someone who's kind of forced to be at your program, like maybe they're just a student in your classroom, if that is your setting, or someone that was dragged there by someone that they know. They're appreciative of it, but they're uninvolved. This could also be your audience online if you are, putting out a lot of content online and speaking to your audience there as well. You might have followers that are appreciative but uninvolved. So if you want to put in the chat A, B, or C, what you feel like your audience generally is like. Yeah, a lot of B's. Usually A is wonderful. Going 1C, yeah. Yeah. Katie, you had shared C. I'm curious to know, you might put it earlier in the chat, who your audience typically is. What is your audience demographic? BC, yeah, since working with public schools primarily, yeah, absolutely.
Can read. Oh,
So we see everyone. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the more, and that's the idea, right? Is we're trying to get everyone on board. And so the broader our audience gets, the more kind of varied their responses are going to be. And typically it's going to be in the C category. So that's hopefully what we're going to try to uh, target today. And we also, just a side note, that, this content can also help people in the A category because a lot of times we do fall into two different camps of someone who is very outdoorsy, again, has an outdoor lifestyle versus someone who isn't. And those with an outdoor lifestyle can feel better connected to their environment when they realize that it's relevant to all aspects of their life, not just when they're being outdoors. So still relevant to all A, B, and C audiences, but definitely wanting to be able to get more people on board with feeling like nature is a part of their life as well. Okay, thanks for sharing, everyone. Okay, so here are the three frameworks that we're going to use to guide our content to be more inclusive of all audience types. And this is what I use for my magazine and the occasional programs I put on in person as well. So I will describe each of these a little bit more in detail, and then show examples of how I utilize the frameworks in my magazine. So a lot of visual and written content, as I said. And then again, we will move to being able to discuss together how we can use them for your specific scenarios. Okay, so accessible language. Objective here is your audience feels included in the conversation. We want to make sure we're using language that anyone can understand. This is, again, first and foremost, we want to be making sure that we're defining what I'm kind of calling industry terms, because for those of us who work in this field, we have a lot more proximity to these terms and all of that, all of these topics. And so we tend to forget sometimes that those in our audience aren't as familiar with them. So even if they are terms that they understand, like especially if you're talking to adults or an older grade level, with terms like climate change or biodiversity, those are things that they may understand in theory, but not really. It's not some language that's familiar to them. So it kind of creates a little bit of distance when we are using a lot of industry term heavy language. We want to make sure that this is the space when they're coming to our programs or engaging with our content. This is their opportunity, again, to feel connected rather than feeling like they're listening in on your conversation in your world. They are kind of part of it instead. The second is urban connections. So the objective here is your audience recognizes the relevance of nature in their life. This is really, again, the heart of what being inclusive, I think, for me means. So we are highlighting the relationship between nature and urban life. And by urban life here, I mean anything that's not remote or remote rural living. Living in a suburb or a neighborhood, all of that is kind of urban modern life, whatever you kind of want to call it. I just used the term urban. I don't know if that's entirely accurate or not. But again, by doing so, we can help our audiences recognize the relevance of the natural world in their life, regardless of their lifestyle. And the third framework is interdisciplinary topics. Now, interdisciplinary topics is about integrating the role of nature in nearly any and all subjects, not just science. And this is more appropriate if you are like a school science teacher, which I do have, especially for elementary teachers who teach a variety of subjects. It's something that they're able to integrate into all of their subjects that they do with their class. Because truly, right, as we know together that, the natural world impacts everything in all different regards of life. So from um, social studies and history, math, even engineering, depending on, the level again of your audience. Um, you can include a conversation about nature and nature's impact or role in that. So why certain wars happen, why certain places were colonized or uh, conquered. All of those, if we bring in that aspect of nature, it will continue to teach and reinforce that nature is a part of every aspect of our life again. A quick aside, this was something that I learned all the way in college. And it kind of surprised me that I was learning about it for the first time after, 10 years of first learning about the Dust Bowl. But in college, I was taking an environmental history class of America, and we learned about how the Dust Bowl was aggravated by the fact that they were removing native plants in the West to make room for short-rooted crops. And that aggravated and eventually caused the Dust Bowl. And I just couldn't believe that I didn't learn about that being the reason as a kid. It was just kind of like, and then this happened one day with no context to, again, the role that the natural world played in that. So yeah, unless maybe you learned about that when you were, you had a really cool teacher who told you. Okay, so now for some examples. This is a spread from one of our issues from the magazine called Made in Nature, which was about how everything we use and eat comes from nature. So again, a lot of visuals here that I rely on heavily. My magazine, despite it technically being a science magazine, it is illustrated because, majority illustrated, because I think it gives us a unique opportunity to be able to help children imagine those connections a little bit better rather than just using photographs. So in this case, in the introduction, I am talking about how we may not live in tree houses, but our homes are still made of trees. And so then we've got this beautiful illustration of a tree house on the side to kind of drive that point home. Like for a kid to look at this and be like, oh, well, my home doesn't look like that, but it's still similar in the way that it's built, just to kind of, again, stretch that imagination and draw that connection. And then the activity on the left is also, again, visually showing kids the connection between raw materials and then what they become as materials for us to use. And then one of the ways I bring in interdisciplinary topics in the magazine is through the In the Field section, which highlights professionals from a variety of industries to show our readers how nearly every career, right, like as we talked about, can help care for the environment in some way, since it is playing a role in everything around us. So we've got interdisciplinary topics highlighted here with our circular economy consultant discussing recycling bins using technology or AI to become smarter and make that process more efficient. Over here, it might be surprising that I chose to tackle circular economy for our magazine audience. The audience age is from 7 to 11 years old. So we really made that simplified by saying a circular economy is when things are designed to be reused, repaired, and recycled over and over again so that we do not create waste. Um, and if you look up the definition of circular economy online, it's definitely not that simplified, but I think we did a great job of being able to make that really accessible to kids to introduce them to these topics, as well as again through the visual of what we've done here. And then we've got an urban connection. Earlier in the issue, we talked about how materials are harvested from the habitat of African penguins and gorillas, specifically Colton rock for technology for creating the technology for our phones and laptops, and then fertilizer as well. So talking about how a circular economy and how we reduce, reuse, repair things can help animals in the wild. This is a different issue, one of our latest, called Small and Mighty, and it was focusing on how small actions and small living things can have a big impact on the environment around them. So a lot of times when we have kind of environmental action points, it's like, like, oh, plant a tree or put out a bird feeder. And this issue was meant, or this article was meant to help children imagine the rest of the impact to see how it is really relevant to their life instead of just an action that's a little bit isolated. So we followed planting a tree and where it kind of led. So the tree, provided shelter for local wildlife, and it also ends up aerating the soil, which is another accessible language point. We describe that as creating pockets of air in the dirt, and then eventually leading to cleaner river, natural pest control, cleaner water, and natural pest control. And then for a younger audience, we'd also done a issue kind of creating a parallel between a child's like everyday life again and the lives of the animals that live in their neighborhood. So we use the text to focus on the animals in the image, and then the illustrations still set up what a regular kid might be doing through his day, waking up in the morning and having breakfast and going to school and playing in the yard. And then the text again just focused on the wildlife that surrounds them to kind of show that they are part of this connected environment. And then I took that kind of similar concept and created it into a tabletop activity when I did the Dallas Zoo's Homeschool Day event. I created a rough map of a neighborhood with a shopping mall and a creek and a park and houses. And then I had those little toy animals and invited the students or kids that came by to place the animals on the map to help them visualize again how they share that space with other living things. Okay, so now that I kind of gave you a little bit of a introduction or a taste of how I use those frameworks to guide what I do with the magazine, I wanted to invite you to participate a little bit, just a little bit of a brain teaser in the beginning, and then we'll get into how you can again use this in your own programs. So first, if you'd like to pop in the chat your own words for defining these common terms that we might use in a lot of our language, what is some way that you would define them? You don't have to do all three. You can just choose one that's speaking to you, or maybe one that you like to, that you use frequently, or one that you kind of have a good definition for in your own words. It can be for your audience level too. You don't have to make it specific to any a younger audience or older audience. Again, I like to simplify things even for adults, right? It really helps them feel welcome, especially if they're not, again, involved in our world as often. Yeah, large variety of animals and plants, the living and non-living parts of our environments.
We also have biodiversity, all the different kinds of plants and wildlife animals around us.
Yeah. And here is how they're a little bit wordy, but again, I'm typically having the ability to use text to add to this, but this is how I would define some of these. So we really want to get in the habit of simplifying industry terms. Again, because I think that's really can sometimes be the biggest barrier, especially if someone's already in part of your program. For me, I found that um, because caring for nature and being outdoors is often attached to a little bit of a moral a morality thing that people can feel shy asking for a definition or saying that they don't understand a term because it kind of feels shameful that they don't already know it. Again, especially if they're an adult or even if they're a child, they can get that impression as well of feeling like they should already really be familiar with these words. So it's two parts, right? One, that we want to make sure that they feel part of the conversation, that the language is familiar so that they feel, again, connected and part of that conversation, while also that nobody feels kind of othered in a program as they're being spoken to, that they might feel like, yeah, this is not my world. Like I I feel shy asking because again, sometimes that's attached to a little bit of a moral thing. And we want everybody to feel like they understand and are a part of it. Changes in rainfall amounts and seasons, temperature, winds over a period of time. Yeah. A group of organisms that need each other to be happy. I like that. One way that I like to describe the importance of biodiversity and diverse ecosystems is talking about how our bodies, especially for kids, right? Our bodies also need a variety of different things to be healthy and strong. If we just ate the same thing over and over again, it wouldn't be very good for our bodies. So our planet as well needs a variety of living things to keep it healthy. Wonderful. Thank you guys for sharing. Okay, so next we've got our framework, right? So how can you implement this in your programs? And I think one of the ways is by asking yourself these questions, because again, at the heart of what we're doing here is the urban connections allows us to share examples that our audiences can consider even when they aren't outdoors, because they're making connections between what is more familiar to their life with what they're seeing outdoors. Let me see. So essentially what we're considering is once they go back inside or leave your program, et cetera, what lessons or examples are they carrying with them that will keep them thinking about the natural world and its relevance to everything else that they're involved in. Let me I'm going to quickly type the questions in the chat. I'm unable to copy and paste at the moment.
Yeah, and in just a minute, y'all are going to get an invitation to join a breakout room. And
Yes.
there's one for informal and outdoor education and one for K to 12 education, so in classroom. You can choose whichever one fits the best for you. And if you're not sure, choose whichever one looks more appealing.
I am going to share one more slide to kind of give you a little bit of direction in what I mean. They're just some examples. I'm not an expert in all of these fields. That's where you guys come in and are able to apply this to your work. But I have some like Texas-specific examples that might be a good starting point. An ecoregion trait that impacts our city. So that we'll send that in the chat for you to consider. And then these are just some examples. So like when we're talking about raw materials, like if you're taking them out on a hike or they are, you're going birding, or what kind of resources do you have access to that you can draw a good comparison for? It might be like the types of trees that you're seeing that Texas itself produces to create as timber. All of those might be relevant and present in your setting for you to be able to draw that connection. Edibles, we want to keep it, again, this isn't my field of expertise. So people who are the plant people can definitely jump in and have a lot more to share about creating, again, more connections between what they see outdoors. With the edibles, like we want to be, one of the reasons I did give more basic examples is because we want it to be something, again, that's very closely related instead of, the more unfamiliar things. We want to at least start or include those to make it something that's more relatable. And then ecoregion, right? What about it impacts something that is a part of their everyday life, whether it's water quality, the value of their home, where they live, and things like that. So you guys can go ahead and take maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how everything goes. Sarah, you can let me know how much time you think we should have the breakout room for.
I think
Yeah.
probably do 10 minutes. It's 2:34.
Okay.
Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. And then I'll remind everyone at about 1 minute left that you are time to wrap up.
Okay, awesome. And you guys can also discuss definitions more if that was something that was interesting. Anything that we talked about that you feel like might be relevant.
Okay. I'm going to open the rooms. See some of you choosing your rooms. If you're not sure how, just let me know and I can help you out. Melody, Liz is by herself in formal education. Would you mind joining her?
Yeah, that's not a problem. Sorry, I'm still driving. Put me wherever.
In there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Right.
Should I join that one too?
Of course. Okay. Okay. Ashley, you should have a thing to say. Join. There you go. Now it's just us.
Okay, great. You can let me know how you think it's going, if there's some things I should change.
I think it's going great.
Okay, thanks. I'm glad. Yeah, I don't have too much after this. Like they can come back and share what they would like to,
Okay.
so open up their mic. And then I was just going to share some resources for where I kind of get inspiration for including these frameworks in my work.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. We'll just give it a minute for everyone to join us. I think the formal group is still chatting. Okay. And everyone should be back.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Now this is your opportunity to share and ask questions about maybe something that came up. You're welcome to turn on your mics, because it'll be a little bit of a longer, I assume, if we want to share. Please go ahead. Feel free to turn on your cameras as well if you feel like you'd like to while you're speaking.
If you wait too long, I will call on people.
Something that it doesn't even have to be related to what we're talking about. Just what was your discussion like? Did you find any sort of inspiration on being able to pinpoint where you might be able to implement these or not, and some challenges? Plants and water were common denominators. Yeah.
Jesse, I see you took yourself off mute. Do you want to share?
Sure. I was about to say the same exact thing, actually. There was a lot of discussion about plants and water, and we have a beautiful area on campus that we call our rainscapes, where we have things like acorns and dandelions. We don't have pecans, but there's a lot of natural things that children play with when they come to visit us, but we haven't really, I guess, encouraged the edible side of it. But we do also, for raw material at the water district, have water. So I discussed a lesson that we do called Cloud in a Cup, where it's essentially you're making the water cycle in a cup. And then the kids can drink it when they're done. And it's a nice hydration boon for Texas. So,
Yeah, that's awesome. A very quick connection there between the water cycle and then just immediately being able to drink it. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jesse, you have requests for that activity.
Yeah.
Deal. I have a PDF I can pop in, and it can get scaled as far up or down as you need to by grade level. I'll go ahead and pop that in the chat.
Oh, Okay. If anyone would like to share, they're welcome to pop in the chat and say they would like to raise their hand, but we'll go ahead and share just some resources that you may be able to continue to use for inspiration because they are ones that I use whenever I am, again, trying to be mindful of being more inclusive with the types of topics I include or different lifestyles, etc. Um, and some of these may already be familiar to you or ones that you are a part of. But some resources we have here. First up is Ask Nature. It is a biomimicry website that is basically this whole database of different ways that we use nature to improve our lives. And it's really good for like engineering concepts or things like that for older grades. But it's also just a really wonderful way to see how much or the depth and breadth again of the impact nature has on all different aspects of our urban living. Texan by Nature is another wonderful one because they do a lot online to share what their partners or their business partners are doing. And again, all of that is an urban connection and very Texas related. And then there are just some books that I'm a big reader, and reading is one of the big ways that I use to get inspiration and information for the magazine. I share them on my Instagram with a little bit more of a summary of what I liked about it. But Shade is about shade being a natural resource in cities, and Fuzz is about the interaction of nature and wildlife in when it comes in conflict with urban areas and kind of how we manage that in a way that's best for everybody. Hidden Systems is a little bit different. It's a graphic novel, but it talks about the kind of the systems that kind of run our world. So it has um, electricity, water, internet. But all of those again relate to the natural world in some way. So it really helps paint a picture of that depth and breadth that is just really good inspiration. And then we also have a For the Birds game that I created with a few wonderful organizations in Texas. The illustrations that you saw throughout the presentation were done by the same illustrator who created the game for us. And it's about teaching kids how there are um, it- every kind of different role in a city has an impact on the biodiversity of birds in the area and the health of the birds. And obviously, that can be taken for an influence in a lot of different areas as well, not just birds. But it's really cool to show kids how, like, the impact that a hotel manager would have. He's one of our characters, or the city mayor, or just a regular resident in the city. It's kind of like, again, a choose your own adventure. So you're welcome to check out that game and play with your students or have it as a resource. And then finally, we have the magazine itself. Again, the magazine is something that I really use as a way to help kids better understand their relationship with the natural world. It is a seasonal publication. It comes out 4 times a year. I do have an educator code as well that I will put in the chat for a small discount every year if you'd like to use it for your professional purposes. And if you have any questions about it, please do ask me. Our website is maritimusmagazine.com. And yeah, that is pretty much it. I really hope that our, frameworks that we shared were something that you will kind of allow you to, again, expand your material a little bit more, ensure that we're being inclusive of all different lifestyles, again, because our goal here is to make sure that everybody feels welcome outdoors, because once they do, they'll feel more ownership over it. They'll want to spend more time there because they'll feel more welcome and they'll take better care of it as well. Please let me know if you have any questions, but I really appreciate you sharing your time with me and I hope you benefited.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. Thank you. Lots of thank yous in the chat. So,
You're very welcome. Thank you guys for sharing your time with me again.
and just as we close out, a few closing announcements. If y'all could take a moment to fill out our evaluation, that would be very helpful. That allows us to see how we're doing, share our that share everything back with the presenter as well. And then our next webinar is it's called Aim to Float, San Antonio's Story of a TPWD Co-op Program. And I'm going to put the registration there. And then you'll get an official announcement in your email next week, but we have dates in a city for our 2026 summit, which will be December 11th through 13th. No, sorry, December 9th through 11th in San Antonio. So we are a month out from RFPs going out for session proposals. So if any of you are interested in doing a session proposal, be on the lookout for that as well. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for your time, ladies.
Thank you, Jessie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and have a fantastic rest of your afternoon.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.